Hello and welcome to another AWS Tech Talk. So today we're going to be talking about how to manage and improve your application's resiliency. This Tech Talk will cover continuity strategy, a deep dive into CloudEndure Disaster Recovery, as well as the resources available to you moving forward. My name is Garrett Pollard, and I am the CloudEndure DR specialist here at AWS. With me, I have my colleague Roman. I'll let him put a voice to the name.
Hi, I'm Roman Schwartz. I'm the Senior CloudEndure Partner Development Manager. Happy to be with you today.
Excellent. So as we get started, I'd really like to pose a few questions and really suggest you all take a moment to think about them in relation to your day-to-day. This will really help us all get in the right frame of mind for a conversation around continuity. The first question to consider here, have you ever had an IT outage? Have you had multiple outages? Has this outage or outages lasted a few hours, a few days, even weeks? The second question to consider here, has your organization tested your DR solution in the last 6 months? In the last year or longer? Out of those who have performed DR tests, were they successful? Again, these are questions that are important and certainly something you should always be thinking about to ensure that you have a continuity strategy in place that aligns with your organization's goals. With that, I'd like to hand things over to Roman to discuss continuity strategy.
Thanks, Garrett. So in 2020, Forrester claimed that the infrastructure services alone on cloud will grow by 122 billion by 2022. So the idea around this is that crafting a strategy that allows you to fully understand, leverage, and utilize all of the benefits of the cloud is really vital to modern DR infrastructure. The idea here being that leveraging things like the elasticity of a public cloud, as well as the ability to use on-demand resources, is really beneficial to companies being able to recover quickly and at the same time save costs and provide efficiency. Some of the main drivers for disaster recovery, and specifically leveraging disaster recovery on the AWS cloud, are things like application errors. Say, for instance, an application fails, a patch doesn't go through, you're actually able to recover within minutes with just a few seconds of downtime, as you'll see Garrett demonstrate a little bit later. And in terms of other options that you might have, there's also potential for interrupted infrastructure availability and access. Maybe you have a snowstorm, maybe a hurricane hits, maybe there's some sort of a disaster or an outage in terms of electricity that causes you not to be able to access your main data center, and you have to be up and running. In order to be able to facilitate that, you're able to leverage the might of AWS to be able to run on AWS servers until the disaster is averted, and then you can either fail back to your original infrastructure, be it a different AWS location or a different cloud, or you're able to continue running and retarget to a different location. And the last two kind of become the more common use case and the ones that we talk about more often, which are human errors and cyber attacks. So human errors, we all know nothing is 100% foolproof, and no one is able to avoid potentially doing some sort of damage or harm by accident. And these things happen. The beauty of leveraging AWS is that you're able to recover in just a few minutes without any real downtime in terms of being able to continue operating. And the last one is cyber attacks. And this is a growing concern of many people. And when it comes to cyber attacks, the idea here is it's not a way of preventing cyber attacks. There is a lot of different methods that you can utilize and a lot of different services on AWS that'll help you really bolster that security posture. But what we're talking about here is the ability to recover from. And in accordance with the NIST cybersecurity framework and the guidelines in regards to that, The idea around setting up a robust way to combat ransomware is really to start with setting up a recovery plan to be able to recover no matter what kind of ransomware attack you're in, whether it be something that locks you out of your environment, something that steals your data, something that, any form of effective malicious software that infects your systems. The ability to be able to be up and running within minutes and then remediate the situation means that you don't have to pay a ransom. You're able to continue operations. So let's talk a little bit about the difference between disaster recovery and backup. Both are very important critical features that you should look into when it comes to AWS, but serve different functions. When it comes to backup, you're focusing on data. You have a recovery time of probably hours. It's going to take about a 24-hour amount of data loss that you may lose depending on when you're doing those backups. But you also get the benefit of having a much longer retention period. You can store data for years, decades, however long you need to, and you have the ability to recover independent and individual files. There's also a cost savings if you're not accessing that data frequently. You can store it in things like S3 Glacier or Deep Archive, in which case you'll be able to store the data for longer periods of time without needing to really access it at speed. With disaster recovery, the difference is you can really leverage this for full application stacks. So any source to AWS, you can also be able to choose entire applications, entire environments, and bring up entire applications and environments. You're not just focusing on data. You're able to recover in minutes with just a few seconds of data loss, and you're able to really scale this out to your entire IT environment. So the benefits here are that with disaster recovery, you're able to recover quickly, you're able to recover efficiently, you're able to create that always-on experience. With backup, you're able to pull individual files, and you're able to leverage both cost savings and long-term retention. So let's discuss a little bit of the difference between traditional disaster recovery in comparison to disaster recovery on AWS. So traditional disaster recovery has some limitations. For one, as your data growth increases, your hardware and operational costs increase as well. You have to start budgeting for having a backup site, for running a colo, for maybe a costly contract that you might have with a managed service provider. It can be difficult to test without disrupting your operations. Do you schedule your tests for weekends? Is this something that you're doing, during off hours? Do you come in early to test? Are you able to manage the infrastructure overhead? With traditional disaster recovery, you're going to have to manage both the hardware, the software, the entire security stack when it comes to your infrastructure. And the last bit, and this really is one that we talk about a lot throughout the presentation, is it's not elastic and incapable of basically doing any sort of quick changes. And the reason that this is important is no matter what your 2-year, 3-year, 5-year, 1-year plan is, IT is fluid. Things change rather quickly in the industry, and something that you were planning for tomorrow might mean that, all of a sudden you have to upscale your architecture based on something that you didn't really expect to happen, or maybe something bad happens and you have to scale down. The elasticity component of being able to both scale up and scale down as needed with on-demand resources is something that really hampers the concept of traditional disaster recovery. So let's discuss how the continuity strategy and decision-making process works when it comes to selecting which applications really go where when it comes to leveraging AWS and the concept of disaster recovery in the cloud. So as you mentioned before, there's really backup and disaster recovery, but disaster recovery is also broken up into two sections of high availability and DR. And as you can see by the graph, when we're talking about backup and restore, you're typically seeing days, hours to recover. It takes a lot longer. As we mentioned before, you are able to store things for a longer period of time. However, you're also being able to leverage that really cost-effective strategy of being able to use things like S3 and Glacier and things along those lines. With high availability, on the other hand, you have two sites that are always on, fully functional, and you're writing to both. The advantages here is you have no downtime because you're writing to multiple sites at the same time. The disadvantages are it's more costly, and also you're writing any sort of malicious code to both sites at the same time. So you don't really have a recovery strategy when it comes to ransomware leveraging something like high availability. So where disaster recovery comes in, and as Garrett will explain a little bit further on how CloudEndure works, is this ability of a pilot light scenario. So having something that has resources on demand at all times, but is not fully running, gives you that great cost savings, but also allows you to recover within minutes instead of, for instance, hours or days. And at the same time, it'll also give you the ability to roll back to a point in time before you were infected with ransomware. All three of these are very critical to coming up with a business strategy that works for you. The importance is really deciding and working together with your trusted advisors to find out what is the best combination of this for your IT infrastructure. With that, I want to dive into a little bit of the cloud-based disaster recovery drivers. So things that really drive people to look at AWS and public cloud in general for disaster recovery. And the first one is to really increase and improve that recovery objective timeline. So basically be able to recover very quickly and very efficiently, leveraging fewer resources on leveraging the public cloud. In this particular case, what we're talking about here is being able to be up in minutes with having just a few seconds of downtime, and at the same time, being able to leverage that low-cost model allows you to both improve your recovery objectives and also improve the cost savings, as we'll talk about a little bit later. So the next driver I want to touch on is the possibility of data loss due to ransomware or other server corruption. We touched on this a little bit earlier, but I really want to dive a little deeper into this. So the idea around ransomware is it is something that's been around for some time. It's not going away, and the industry, in terms of how it addresses it, is seeing this as a persistent and consistent problem. Ransomware attacks happen all the time, and as a result of that, it's very difficult to plan ahead and make sure that you are fully covered and 100% protected against ransomware. There is no 100% way to guarantee that you will never get ransomware. It's why ransomware is so effective. So the way that CloudEndure and the way that AWS deals with this concept is not only should you bolster your security posture, not only should you do best practices in terms of hygiene when it comes to your IT infrastructure, but really you should leverage things like CloudEndure and backup to be able to recover to a point in time before the ransomware hit on AWS and be able to actually keep running your business while at the same time being able to remediate or fix any of the issues with the underlying server, fix any holes that you had in your infrastructure, your security, and all of those concepts, as well as the idea of having a shared responsibility model when it comes to security, really allows you to kind of bolster your ability to recover from ransomware. And what I mean by shared security model is that the infrastructure layer, when it comes to AWS, the security when it comes to the actual physical servers, is covered by AWS. You're really responsible for your networking and your applications. So the next driver that we really want to touch on is protecting large-scale or compute-intensive workloads. What we mean by this is that it really doesn't matter the size. And again, as Garrett will demonstrate a little bit later on and how the CloudEndure service works, it doesn't matter the size or the scope or the scale of your environment. You can have a handful of servers, you can have thousands and thousands and thousands of servers. And the idea here is that the service is designed to scale with you. So whether you grow or whether you shrink or whether you need to protect large amounts of data and applications, or whether you're just protecting one or two applications and a handful of data, you're actually able to leverage the elasticity and use the same tool no matter where you are in your journey and no matter where your business is in terms of its IT and cloud adoption. In terms of other drivers that we're seeing, we also have the idea of being able to budget this in accordance with what you're doing in your business. So maybe you have a hardware refresh coming up, or maybe there's cost increases in the servers, or maybe this is something where you're looking to leverage the diversity of multiple locations, multiple clouds, maybe a contract's expiring. All of these things are important factors to consider when it comes to talking about disaster recovery. The idea of leveraging disaster recovery on AWS is it's a pay-as-you-go model. Everything is billed by the hour. So realistically, you can just, without a contract, be able to spin up more resources, less resources. It's a way of being able to build your IT infrastructure in a way that benefits you, that allows you to easily recover from any outages, but also allows you to do things like pilot the cloud, as again, Garrett will touch on a little bit later. And then finally, and this is one that we've sort of touched on throughout these past couple slides, is this idea of being able to reduce your total cost of ownership of a DR solution. And when we get into the architecture, you'll really get to see why. But the idea here is, without having to dedicate resources, without having to dedicate servers or management, you're actually able to save on the cost of doing business when it comes to running a DR strategy, because you have this always on-demand resource structure where it is elastic, it grows and shrinks as you need it to. And again, in terms of always being on, you're not really running a full environment in multiple locations. You're just able to spin up an environment as needed. So the cost savings are really one of the main drivers when it comes to cloud-based disaster recovery. So as we covered, and I kind of want to recap here real quick, why use the cloud for disaster recovery? Well, as we mentioned, you only pay for what you need. You have lower IT management overhead. You're able to easily repeat and do testing without shutting down anything in production. And again, you're able to be up in minutes. The entire concept of all of this is to design a system that works for you and is able to be designed to fit your needs, leveraging any type of resources that you could possibly imagine. When it comes to AWS, you're able to really build whatever you need in terms of your IT infrastructure. And to summarize, before I hand it off to Garrett to do a deeper dive of how CloudEndure and disaster recovery works, let's compare the two side by side in terms of traditional disaster recovery versus cloud-based disaster recovery. So in a traditional disaster recovery, as we mentioned, you're going to have increased hardware and operational costs. You're going to have difficulty to test without disruption, and you're going to have management and infrastructure overhead. All of these, plus some of the other things that we discussed, are things to really consider when you're thinking about traditional disaster recovery. On the cloud-based side, you're going to see an 80% cost savings over traditional disaster recovery. You're going to be able to easily test, pilot, patch things in the cloud with no impact to production. You're going to be able to recover in minutes. And again, as I've mentioned throughout, you're really able to do something that is more elastic, that more fits your needs and is able to scale up and down. And with that, Garrett, please walk us through the solution.
Awesome. Thank you, Remy. So now that we covered continuity strategies in the cloud, we'll now take a deeper dive into CloudEndure Disaster Recovery now that we know where it fits. So CloudEndure Disaster Recovery is a solution that enables you to have point-in-time failover capabilities from any source into AWS, EBS, and EC2. So this provides a great deal of flexibility. So you can protect your on-prem workloads in AWS. If you're in AWS, you can protect them region to region or AZ to AZ, or even cross-cloud capable as well. So the goal here of CloudEndure Disaster Recovery is to reduce costs without having to sacrifice enterprise-grade resiliency. And we're able to do this and achieve this by staging your data in a low-cost, essentially dormant state in the target, where you only pay for the full resources when you actually have to fail over. When it comes to business-related outcomes using CloudEndure Disaster Recovery, we look at robust operations, being able to improve your reliability and availability when it comes to how the organization operates. Cost efficiency by reducing the need for duplicate infrastructure as well as duplicate licensing. And lastly, operational continuity. We allow users to not only test their DR solutions, but test it quickly and successfully, giving you the peace of mind you need. So as we dive deeper into what's important to know about CloudEndure Disaster Recovery, I like to talk about them around the pillars that they're built on. Starting with flexible. So CloudEndure Disaster Recovery operates at the OS level, which provides a great deal of flexibility. This allows us to be used any source into AWS, EBS, and EC2, as well as have the ability to protect physical, virtual, and cloud-based servers. From a compatibility standpoint, as long as those servers we are looking to protect are Windows or Linux-based and supported in AWS, EBS, and EC2, we're good to go. Lastly, we not only fail over in the event of an outage, but can also fail back to the original source when that outage is resolved. Next is reliability, probably the most important characteristic when talking about overall continuity strategy. When using CloudEndure Disaster Recovery, it will not impact performance and is non-disruptive. So along with operating at the OS level, CloudEndure Disaster Recovery utilizes continuous block-level replication. So when it's in use, you're capturing any block-level changes that happen at the source as soon as they happen and sync them with the target. So it can deliver a near-zero RPO or recovery point objective, along with an RTO of minutes, and that's a recovery time objective of minutes. We discussed ransomware earlier in depth, and I need to give my PSA around the topic. So as Roman mentioned, and as I'll echo here, CloudEndure Disaster Recovery is in no way, shape, or form the end-all, be-all, silver bullet when it comes to your ransomware concerns. But it is a very big piece of a well-thought-out strategy you're probably discussing or planning on discussing with your AWS account team around prevention, detection, and recovery. So CloudEndure Disaster Recovery falls into that recovery bucket. So in parallel to that continuous block-level replication, CloudEndure Disaster Recovery is also taking snapshots that are air gaps from the source for point-in-time recovery. And as long as we know when the event has occurred, we can then recover from a point in time prior to that event. Lastly, automated. This one really just speaks for itself. It's just easy to use. So we were able to provide non-disruptive testing in parallel to its normal operation, allowing you to spin up servers just like you would in a real-life failover without any impact to source or target. As I mentioned earlier, we stage data in a low-cost state until you need to fail over, providing a much lower TCO in comparison to the traditional DR practices that Roman covered a little while ago. So now let's talk a little more about the benefits around CloudEndure Disaster Recovery. For those who may or may not know, CloudEndure also has a free lift and shift migration solution, now called Application Migration Service. And CloudEndure Disaster Recovery utilizes the same baseline technology and often gets used as a mechanism for migration. So what I mean by this is that in some scenarios where customers have on-prem workloads and are looking to eventually move them into AWS, or maybe customers who are considering the cloud but are not entirely sold on that idea yet, this provides them a great opportunity to maintain their on-prem environment and use AWS as a DR site. So by doing this, from here, they'll have the ability to reduce their DR site costs by moving from managing their own DR site to AWS with CloudEndure Disaster Recovery. They'll also be able to improve their recovery time in the event of an outage to minutes. And finally, have an easier way to test and run DR drills. And then when they are ready to move these workloads to AWS or decide that cloud is the right direction, all they need to do is click failover and then repoint to another region for disaster recovery purposes. For those who are already in AWS or in the process of migrating there, CloudEndure Disaster Recovery should be a consideration once you get there. The world today is very unpredictable, as we all know, which is why it's more important than ever to prepare for the worst and hope for the best by protecting your workloads already in AWS. CloudEndure Disaster Recovery will help you increase your resilience in the cloud by achieving geographical redundancy to prepare for any potential outages due to things out of everybody's control. This can also be great for your teams that are busy building in AWS by giving them the ability to test updates, apply patches, even protect and launch new applications. And lastly, as part of a well-rounded DR strategy or ransomware strategy, we can help with the recovery from such an event. Now that we understand the finer points of CloudEndure Disaster Recovery, let's show you how it works. So for starters, let's not forget that CloudEndure Disaster Recovery is any source into AWS. So let's keep those definitions around source and target in mind as we go along. So first things first, we do need to make sure that the prerequisites are in place. Opening up port 1500, 443 outbound, making sure we don't get caught in any firewalls and things like that. And once they are in place, we can then deploy the agent on the server that we are looking to protect. So this agent is very lightweight, actually operates more like a write filter than anything. And this not only helps with the replication, but helps us communicate with the CloudEndure management console that resides within AWS. Next, you need to have an AWS account and create a staging area subnet to replicate to. Once these are in place, we can then begin replication over whatever connection that you provide directly from source to target. This can be an AWS Direct Connect, VPN, whatever you would like to use, and this can also be throttled as well. From a security perspective, let's not forget that we operate at the OS level. And at that level, we don't know we're moving, nor do we have access to it. We're also replicating over whatever connection you provide directly from source to target. And at no point do we ever go through any control plane. This data is also encrypted and compressed both at rest and in flight. So once we've replicated everything from source to target, we then go into that continuous block level replication. We'll then, at that point, be able to see any and all changes at the source and sync them with the target. It's also important to note that the disks in the staging area have no attached compute. The disks are nothing more than a replica disk repository, and they are not actually running any of the replicated OS, so we don't show the boot volume there. But before we can initiate a test or a failover, we need to assemble our blueprint. So the CloudEndure blueprint, this is our automation. It's a similar concept as a CloudFormation template that you might be a little more familiar with. Essentially, this blueprint tells the machines not only where they got to go, but what they need to be when you do initiate a test or a failover. So this will ask for a lot of information like subnets, IP addresses, security groups, instance types, essentially everything we need to know in order to do the heavy lifting of spinning everything up for you. So this can be done manually, but please keep in mind we're built for the enterprise and built for scale here. So you can use a discovery or analysis tool. Let them do their jobs to assist with discovery and right sizing, and you can export that CSV file and then import that into CloudEndure to build that blueprint. We also make our APIs readily available, along with some API documentation if you rather use scripting to build these out as well. So once this blueprint is put together, let's remember we have this testing feature, and we want to use that to test and make sure that this works the way it should. And once we do that and validate that everything works the way it should, we should be good to go. So up to this point, we've installed agents, we've replicated all that data, we've created, tested, and validated the blueprint. So now we're in a state of DR readiness. So when an event does occur, all you have to do at this point is go into the console, select failover, and then you'll be prompted to pick from a bunch of recovery points. So taking a step back here, you are able to set your own retention anywhere from 1 to 90 days. And we'll take snapshots every 10 minutes for the first hour, then hourly, daily, weekly, monthly, depending on what you set. So once you do select that specific recovery point, we will then grab that snapshot, move it into a new or existing VPC. And if we are coming from on-prem, we will deploy a machine converter that will translate that language of on-prem to AWS for you seamlessly. If you are in AWS already, this will obviously not be used. But then the blueprint will do exactly what you told it to do and fail over in the matter of minutes. And essentially, this is how CloudEndure works. So the only other trick we do have up our sleeve here is failing back, which essentially is the same thing we just did, but in reverse. So what we'll do is reverse that concept of source and target, bootstrap a replication server on the previous or new target, and then we'll perform a quick rescan just to see if we can send back the deltas. If we can, we will. If we can't, we won't. And at that point, we will redirect the traffic and send everything the other way. And that's how CloudEndure works. So you're all probably wondering at this point, where do we even start? Where do we go from here? Roman and I are going to guide you through that now. So getting started, for starters, talk to an expert. You have a lot of resources at your disposal here at AWS, including Roman and I. We are on the CloudEndure Disaster Recovery team. I'm the CloudEndure Disaster Recovery Specialist. And you also have your AWS account team that's full of resources as well. And this is a great place to start the conversation. So when we do start this conversation, we're really going to start helping you by walking through what you're currently doing and really what you want this new strategy to look like. And in order to help with these efforts, we have a ton of resources available that I feel Roman can help walk us through.
Thanks, Garrett. So I really want to start with why you would use an AWS partner. So AWS is a wide range of partners that are certified by the AWS Partner Network. These partners range in their expertise, but CloudEndure has certified a good portion of them to be able to handle DR when it comes to how to build it, how to build strategies around it, how to integrate security, etc. And one of the benefits of having partners when it comes to this is that you're actually able to really design this to meet your needs. So when you're working with a partner, they'll understand your disparate IT infrastructure. Say you're operating in a different cloud, say you're operating in a different region of AWS, say you're on-prem, maybe your servers are physical, maybe they're virtual, maybe they're running older operating systems, as we mentioned before. Maybe you have some specific needs around Active Directory. All of those things can be factored into place, as well as combining this solution with other solutions. As we mentioned before, we're not the solution for ransomware. We're part of an answer to a question. And to get a more full answer to that question, you can leverage other AWS services, you can leverage other AWS technology partners, and really combine that for a solution. So the idea here is that the partner landscape can really understand not just the AWS part of the equation and not just bring their AWS expertise, but they can really bring their expertise in your infrastructure and be able to combine this and build you a solution that's really bespoke and tailored to what you need and what you need to do. As I mentioned before, they're certified by the AWS CloudEndure Partner Development Management Team, which means that they're able to do not just the basic installs of CloudEndure, not just make sure that your servers are up and running, but actually customize abilities of doing things. If you want more monitoring, if you have specific compliance requirements, if you want to have automated scripting or testing or any of that done, this is all able to be facilitated by AWS Partner Network. And again, as I mentioned before, this is something where they will really tailor this to your needs and combine this with multiple solutions to build the DR strategy that works for you. CloudEndure is an excellent tool, and it is a very easy and simple to use tool when it comes to the basic ability of failing one server from another over to another target. However, if you're trying to build a DR strategy, there are more things to consider. There are runbooks and there are other elements to make sure that in the event of a disaster recovery scenario, whether you're actually doing a live scenario, doing a test, or just want to pilot AWS, you have a simple method of doing this. It's repeatable, and it's something that will be able to stay with you as your company transitions, grows, as employees move into different roles. The third element of this is that these partners are actually able to leverage AWS funding to help you with the project. So AWS will graciously fund partner assistance when it comes to your project. In many cases, they'll be able to fund the full amount of a partner engagement. In some, it'll be a portion of it, depending on what exactly it is that you're looking to do. But the idea around this is we really want to help, and we want to make sure that you have all of the abilities available to you when it comes to building out this solution, leveraging both the resources that you have available to you at AWS, as Garrett mentioned, but also are certified partners that are able to really build this and customize this for your specific infrastructure and environment. So how do we get started? We've covered the bit about what resources are available, who you can leverage, but what is really the process when it comes to building out the solution and dealing with all of the elements that we've talked about today? So the first one is you really want to identify the applications that you're going to protect. And by that, what we really mean is you want to dive deep into your infrastructure, maybe run an analysis tool, maybe take a look at what you have set up for networking, and really get into this process of being able to select what category your servers fall into. Are they something that you really need to have that high availability for? Maybe they're servers that are just holding data that you only really need to access once in a while or are stored for compliance purposes. And maybe that's something that you leverage AWS Backup or Storage Gateway for. Or alternatively, maybe there's something that really does fall into that DR scope, and you really do need to have that protection, but you also need to have that ability to recover from ransomware and also that cost savings that's inherent in not having two always on locations. So all of these are questions that, as Garrett had posed in the beginning, and as we've kind of gone through this process, are questions that you want to discuss with your trusted advisors. They're questions you want to discuss with your AWS team and dive a little deeper. They're questions you want to discuss with a partner, maybe professional services. These are the sort of starting points of where you're going to go. From there, we're talking about what is the impact analysis. So what happens if this application goes down? So now that we've identified the applications we're looking to protect and we think we know which buckets they kind of fit into, what is the impact analysis? How quickly do these applications need to be up and running? What is critical to your business in terms of the ability to continue to function in an outage? And going through that and making sure that the DR strategy is set up in such a way that it is really one of those, we push a button and all of a sudden we're up and running in the event of a disaster, is something that you really need to both contemplate from an operational standpoint, but also leverage all of those resources that we mentioned before to help you craft and design. After which, you're going to want to define that SLA. So basically define the time and amount of time that it takes you to be up and running. So how much data can you afford to lose, which is the RPO that we mentioned before, and what is your requirement to be back up and running? In this particular case, you're going to really look through those applications, find out what your SLAs are now. Are they being met? Is this something that needs to be improved on? What is the reason that some of these applications fall into these particular categories and models? For instance, maybe you're leveraging backup for most of your applications due to cost savings because it's expensive to leverage the idea of always on scenarios or the expensive to do DR when you're running your own infrastructure. Again, with the elasticity of AWS, that's something that you can actually be able to address directly when it comes to building out your environment and be able to save money and be able to maybe bring some of those applications that you would like to have disaster recovery for out of that backup layer. On top of that, you're also really able to test. And this is something that we've kind of covered throughout, but the idea here is pilot this out. Test it on AWS. The benefit of this elastic model and the benefit of always on-demand resources is that you're really able to see this work in action without any commitments. And at the same time, it's fairly simple. You're going to be setting something up. You're going to have, the partner commitment with the AWS funding to be able to help you do that. And at the end of the day, if it doesn't work out, you can always break it all down. And at the same time, you'll also be able to see how it works. You'll be able to see what the operational efficiency is, and you'll be able to see what the cost savings are. And then finally, you're really going to want to consider those compliance considerations. There's a lot of options when it comes to being able to leverage compliance on top of what CloudEndure does. So by definition, you can test leveraging CloudEndure, but you can also use things like config and audit trail and other AWS services, including systems manager, et cetera, to be able to define and build both a dashboard and also the ability to track what's going on in your environment, and at the same time provide comprehensive reports for any sort of compliance officers or any sort of needs that you have. Setting this entire thing in motion and setting this all up is really the foundation of how to build a DR strategy. So the goal here is to really make this process something that is tailored for you, works for you, and at the same time, at the end of the day, presents you with a much cleaner, much simpler, much easier, and more cost-effective solution to your traditional DR concepts. And while we're at it, it allows you to really get into that mindset of being able to strategize and build around these foundational starting blocks, building that original or traditional virtual private cloud for yourself to be able to leverage the cloud experience and not just disaster recovery, but down the road in your future roadmap. So that's all we have for you today. You'll see our LinkedIn profiles up here on the right, and to the left, you'll actually see the link to be able to scan that to go to the CloudEndure website to get more information. Please feel free to reach out to us if there's any questions, if there's any concerns, if anything comes up. If you just want to talk about the solution, or if you want more resources or need to know a little bit more about what we discussed today, we're happy to help you out. And with that, Garrett and I will take your questions.